it also became very clear that this was the moment to change, that there was not a time to continue to put off changing or doing something different, which I had spent so many years doing. Yeah. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Role Model Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Peterson, and this week we're going to start a series on emotional maturity. So today I'm going to start talking a little bit about what I call the catalyst point. For some psychologists would call this, or recovery communities would call it rock bottom. But the one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is that most of us don't change because somebody gives us good advice. We change because life finally puts us in a position where staying the same hurts more than changing. For me, that was the exact thing. I was married twice before, and I idolized marriage growing up. If you asked me at the youngest age what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have told you most likely a father and a husband. And that could be a byproduct of not having the parents that I wish I had. It could also be a byproduct of growing up in Utah, and they're very family centric. But I had just basically spent most of my childhood idolizing what it meant to be a father and a husband. And so getting into adult life and putting so much emphasis around that and then failing at it twice caused a lot of issues. And coming out of my second marriage was what I would call my catalyst point, or my rock bottom. So I remember the moment that things finally had to change. So I was at my daughter's birthday party, and at this time, my ex-wife loved to do this thing where she would ask me if she could plan my kids' birthday parties, and then I would flip the bill. And for me at the time, I felt like that was actually a pretty good setup because I didn't have to do all the work. I was fine paying for things. So the problem in this scenario was that I was very broke. Coming out of my second divorce, my second wife had gotten a hold of my database and contacted all my friends and sent them an email spewing some lies. And my response to that was to cope and bury my head in the sand. And the byproduct of that is I run my own real estate business. I'm a real estate agent, and I was so insecure about people getting the message from her that I was this terrible, abusive guy that I decided to not respond. And also, in my lack of response, felt like everybody was judging me, which I think most people weren't. They probably just didn't want to be involved and didn't care. They got thrown into something that they wanted nothing to be, no part of, my personal life. But me internally, this was like the worst thing in the world because I was a people pleaser. So knowing that there was this information about me that was negative and not true, and having no idea how to defend myself just sent me down this path that was really ugly. I gained a bunch of weight back. My business started to really fail. I owed the IRS a bunch of money. My credit cards were climbing. My savings were dwindling. And we get to my daughter's birthday party. I have one deal in my pipeline at this point, and virtually no money left. Like literally down to maybe $1,000 or so left, and rent was coming up. And if that deal that I had in my pipeline didn't close, there's a good chance I'm not paying rent the next month. So we're at Chuck E. Cheese, and at this Chuck E. Cheese birthday party, everything's going fine. I'm drinking with my friends, and they bring me the bill. The bill is over $700. Now, like I said, I have very little money left in my checking account, and almost all of my credit cards are virtually maxed. So as I hand the woman my credit card, I literally have no idea if this is going to clear. And I'm actually pretty sure that I didn't have room on the credit card I gave them, but because I had had that credit card for so long, I think they just lifted my max. They didn't decline it. The credit card company allowed me to go over. And so, but as I'm anticipating this credit card being declined, I'm literally start sweating. And this season of my life was bad. I was just a miserable human being at the time. It was not fun to be around, because I was coping, didn't know how to handle myself, and like as somebody that prided themselves on being a people person, I was becoming very much not a people person. So, credit card actually clears. They bring me the check. I sign it, and about 10 minutes later, my daughters walk up to me, and they were supposed to go home with me this night. I have 50-50 custody of my kids, and it was my night with them. And so my daughters look at me, and I'll never forget the look on their face when they asked me if they could go home with their mom. And I was a little bit taken back and a little bit frustrated. And I looked at them and I could see that they were really uncomfortable. And of course, I can see their mom in my periphery, 10 or 20 feet behind them, looking at me with the same judging eyes that she had always looked at me with. And I, I reluctantly agreed. I was like, yes, you can go home with your mom. Like, I'm okay with that. And when I inquired about why, they just said that they wanted to do it in the most innocent way they could possibly say it, because they're kids. But my heart was broken. And as I'm walking to my car, I'm flooded with emotions. Like, at this point, I was already partially depressed and feeling more negative than I had in a long time. I'd been drinking more. I had been doing things like pursuing women like I hadn't pursued women before, basically just testing everything out. Um, to be honest, trying to figure out if my values were what I had claimed they actually were. Um, and I get in my car and the tears just start coming. And this is a byproduct of this overwhelming feeling that I'm just not loved. My kids don't like me, which that's not on them. That's on me, because I was a miserable human being to be around. The two women that I had dedicated my life to serving and uh, getting to like me also said that they didn't like me. And then my parents, right? They never came out and said they didn't like me, but they didn't want to be around me as a kid. And my mom, God bless her, is a great human being, but she's also like a cat. She doesn't want to be around people that much. And my love language is quality time. So I thrive on those moments and physical touch, which, is a topic for another day. But as I'm driving home, I'm just deflated. And for the first time in my life, I start thinking about, like, is it worth it? And as I'm crying, the tears start to fill up my eyes, and they're so heavy that I, for the first time in my life, was tempted to just turn the wheel into oncoming traffic. There was a 18-wheeler coming, and I'd never had thoughts like this before, and I didn't fully understand how to process them. Needless to say, I'm here. I didn't do that, but I got home, and the preceding hours were pretty awful. When I walked into the door into this empty house, I just basically just kicking and screaming, flipping furniture over, pissed off, screaming at God, screaming at myself, you know, just claiming all of the things that an emotionally immature human being would do with very little understanding. And after exhausting myself through this process, there was a moment of peace. And in this moment of peace, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not one to judge other people's spirituality, but in this moment, I realized that I started to feel the presence of God, or what I would call God. Other people can call it the universe, or whatever you would want to say. And it became very clear to me that God was with me in this moment. And it also became very clear that this was the moment to change, that there was not a time to continue to put off changing or doing something different, which I had spent so many years doing. And so um, I immediately walked over to the liquor cabinet and I had 4 or 5 bottles of alcohol that I dumped down the drain. I opened up the refrigerator. There was a couple bottles of wine that I dumped out, and all of the beer in the fridge. I opened every can and poured it down the sink, and just took out this giant trash bag of alcohol. And I committed in that moment to doing something that I had not done before. And I'm going to get into some of these later about being all in and all out, because that's just who I am as a person. I don't usually do things well if I'm not fully committed to them. So I have a hard time with moderation in general. I've gotten better as I've gotten older, but not a lot. So this moment was important for me, and all the alcohol's out, and I decided I was deleting all my social media accounts. I'd already been working out at a gym, but I'm committed now. I'm committing myself to doing this, and I'm going to build out a morning routine. And that night, I didn't really sleep. I spent the entire night journaling, writing things down, and immediately set goals for myself. I wasn't going to date for at least 6 months to a year. Um, I'd failed at that already. And beyond that too, I was so broken that even when the attempts I had made, all I could think about was my second wife, who our divorce was relatively fresh. And I didn't know how to fix this. And so this was the solution. But after everything came down, this is kind of where I ended up landing. It was that my morning routine was a non-negotiable moving forward. I wasn't going to wake up any time later than 5 a.m., but if I woke up earlier than that, I was just going to get out of bed and start my day. And that's what I did. I'd wake up, I'd spend quiet time with God, just alone. I would journal. I would do daily affirmations. I would read. I read every therapy book I could get my hands on. And I kind of just built out this routine. And I tell you this story because uh, sometimes we have these opportunities in life that to really change, and life is showing us that if we stay the same, it's just going to continue to hurt. And the thing I knew was that I didn't want to continually relive the same story over and over again. So as somebody who idolized marriage and idolized relationships, I had failed at the two most important ones in my life, and starting to show that I was failing at the next most important relationships with my daughters. And that was something that I didn't want to do. And so I think it's really critical that as we take stock of our lives in these moments, especially as men, that we use these downtrodden times as catalysts for change. And they can become these dark moments, and these were very dark moments, and moments that somebody like myself, who was generally a positive human being, didn't normally see. And so being in these dark moments made me realize, like, um, they're necessary, but I don't want to be here. I need to use these moments to never experience this deep of a moment, this deep and dark of a moment again. Not like this, not the self-inflicted kind, right? And I know we all experience loss and other things in life that can bring on dark moments, but these self-inflicted moments I didn't want to experience again, which brings me to the question, what the fuck was wrong with me? Why were the most important people in my life, the people that I tried to love the most, why did they not love me? And so over the course of the next few days, and over the course of this podcast, I think we're going to unpack these questions. This is super important to me and something that I want to spend a lot of time on, because I spent years digging through this, spent years researching myself and trying to figure out what was going on with me. And as somebody that has now gotten themselves out of a really dark place and in a much healthier place, I know men oftentimes, particularly men, oftentimes struggle with these exact scenarios. And if you idolize marriage and relationships, going through a divorce and going through a divorce with kids can be brutal. And more often than not, we run to coping mechanisms rather than running to, uh, healthy change or healthy coping mechanisms. So I hope these are conversations that can be a catalyst for change moving forward. And I'm going to invite you in my story and my journey in doing that. So, episode 1 in the books, and I'll see y'all next time when we talk more about unpacking emotional maturity and what's next after you experience that catalyst moment. So, see y'all next time.